A military discharge is given when a member of the armed forces is released from his or her obligation to serve. Each country's military has different types of discharge. They are generally based on whether the person completed the training and then fully and satisfactorily completed the term of service or not. Other types of discharge are based on factors like the quality of the person's service, whether the service had to be ended prematurely due to humanitarian or medical reasons, whether the person had been found to have drug or alcohol dependency issues and whether they were complying with treatment and counseling, or whether the person had demerits or punishments for infractions or were convicted of any crimes. These factors affect whether they will be asked or allowed to re-enlist and whether they qualify for special benefits after the discharge. United Kingdom. There are several reasons why someone may be discharged from the military, including expiration of enlistment, disability, dependency, and hardship. Members of the British Armed Forces are to complete the service obligations before they may be considered for discharge. Service personnel who attempt to leave before completing the length of service without going through the appropriate channels may be subject to criminal conviction. At the end of service in the regular forces, personnel normally have a compulsory reserve liability. The length of this liability depends on the service, rank and type of commission or engagement in which they entered and whether they are subject to the Reserve Forces Act 1980 or 1996. British Army officers and other ranks must be interviewed by at least the following: Unit Welfare Officer, Regimental Career Management Officer, Regimental Sergeant Major, Regimental Administrative Officer, Commanding Officer, Unit Resettlement Information Star. Types of discharge: normal service leaver, personnel who are leaving on completion of engagement. B. Have been given notice to leave, or C. Been given notice of discharge under redundancy. Early service leaver, personnel who have been discharged either A. compulsorily from the trained or untrained strength, or B. at his or her own request from the trained strength or untrained strength having completed less than 4 years service. Medical discharge, retirement, service is being terminated on medical grounds. Personnel would have attended a medical board that recommended the person's services be terminated on medical grounds. Naval service. Individuals in the Royal Navy and Royal Marines who are not due for compulsory retirement but who wish to leave the service, for whatever reason, before reaching the end of the commission career engagement may apply for early termination provided the conditions outlined in Chapter 54 of BR 3 Naval Personnel Management are met. Within the naval service, the term retirement applies to officers who complete the period of service required by the respective commissions. For officers of the trained strength, recommendations for termination of a commission must generally be reviewed by the Admiralty Board. Early termination. Officers may apply to leave up until the premature termination of career training point, which is generally before the day they pass out of Britannia or Royal Naval College, and also depends on the speciality. Ratings and other ranks have a statutory right of discharge after 6 months' service or after they turn 18. Invaliding. Personnel may be invalided out if they are found permanently unfit for full naval service by the Naval Service Medical Board of Survey. Resignation. This is a common civilian term used to refer to the termination of one's commission, but in the naval service, the term resignation has a special meaning. Despite common usage of the term, officers do not legally have the right to resign their commission. However, they may be permitted to do so under extenuating circumstances, at the discretion of the CO and with permission from the Admiralty Board. Resignation is appropriate when an officer wishes to sever all connection with the service. Circumstances that would warrant resignation rather than the other types of discharge are where an individual holds active actions, beliefs, attitudes, that fundamentally conflict with the concept of military service. The primary consideration of the Admiralty Board's acceptance of resignation is the best interests of the service. Officers who resign their commissions are not liable to serve in the reserves, but certain benefits such as retired pay and resettlement grant may be affected. Other types of discharges include compulsory withdrawal from training, when an officer's performance, whether professional, character or leadership, falls below the standard required, even after all appropriate warnings have been applied. This type of discharge may be invoked. Young officers at the Britannia Royal Naval College, a Commando Training Centre, Royal Marines, and officer candidates promoted from the lower deck who fail to complete initial training can also be subjected to a CWFD. Pilots undergoing professional training would be suspended from flying duties. Administrative discharge. Officers whose performance or conduct falls below the standard required may be discharged from the active list. Incapacity due to causes beyond the officer's control. Unsuitability due to causes within the officer's control. Service personnel may be discharged on grounds of temperamental unsuitability. The RNBR 3 Handbook defines to as a persistent and obvious failure by the individual to adapt to the basic, but unique, demands of service life. Misconduct dismissal. Officers charged with offenses under the military discipline legislation. In exceptional cases, officers may be dismissed with disgrace. Compassionate discharge. There are several types of compassionate discharges. Such a discharge is granted for ratings who seek a discharge due to extenuating personal circumstances.